Back in the 4th century, there was a woman named Etheria, and she made a pilgrimage to Jerusalem. And she recounted in her diary about liturgical celebrations that took place at that time. And in her diary, she wrote about the wonderful procession that took place on the Feast of the Epiphany on January the 6th. She wrote about the celebration of Christmas. And she wrote about the celebration of the presentation of the Christ child in the temple on February the 15th. All of these celebrations were recorded, and her diary was found in 1887, still in good shape and able to reveal to us something of liturgy in those days. And in there, she talks about the processions with candles. Pope Sergius, I think it was, some centuries later, he started the practice of a celebration of candlelight for the Feast of the Presentation, because Jesus himself said he was the light of the world, and he revealed himself as that to Simeon and Anna. And then later on in the West, the Feast of Christmas was changed to December the 25th, and so Candlemas Day became February the 2nd, or the Feast of the Presentation. It's a little bit of history on how this feast was celebrated, and we do the same thing to this day. I don't know what you were thinking when you were holding those candles today, but I'd like to read to you from today's Office of Readings, a sermon by Saint Sophronius, a bishop several centuries ago. It says, "Our lighted candles are a sign of the divine splendor of the one who comes to expel the dark shadows of evil and to make the whole universe radiant with the brilliance of his eternal light. Our candles also show how bright our souls should be when we go to meet Christ. The Mother of God, the most pure Virgin, carried the true light in her arms and brought him to those who lay in darkness. We too should carry a light for all to see and reflect the radiance of the true light as we hasten to meet Jesus." As we hasten to meet Jesus. And I think that's the major. Is she okay, Marianne? Okay. Jesus is the light of the world, and we too are called to be light of the world. And how do we do that? It's Jesus who gives us the grace, who comes to us and gives us the grace to live as he lived. And the candle teaches us about that light. The candle, the burning fire on the candle, and the pure white candle, burns down, burning itself out, fulfilling its purpose to be a light in the darkness. And the ray of light that it gives is a ray of love, symbolically a ray of love. We too are called to do that in our lives, that we are to, as it were, burn ourselves out for the love of Christ. The candle sacrifices its life itself to give the light of life. And we too should be sacrificing ourselves by loving God and loving our neighbor by the way that we live, and be a sign of Christ's light in the world. On the day of our baptism, we were all given a candle like you held tonight, and said, "Keep this flame of faith alive in your heart until the Lord comes to meet you." And so keeping the flame of faith alive in our hearts, what you're doing tonight, present here at the Mass, to worship God and to receive his body and blood, and then to carry that presence of Christ from within us out to those we encounter. So today's feast is very significant. Jesus in so many places is called the light of the world, and he tells us that we're to be the light of the world after him. It's a great calling, and Jesus gives us the grace, he gives us the ability, he guides and directs us. Our Blessed Mother, as it said in this reading I read, held the light in her very arms. How wonderful for her and for St. Joseph to hold the Christ child in their arms. We hold Jesus himself in the Holy Eucharist in our hearts. We're just as privileged. He's that intimate with us in the Mass and gives us that grace to be a light of Christ in the world. Let us stand now and offer our prayers and petitions.